Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Rangers Rabble Academy review. Quite a lot to talk about tonight. It feels like it's been a wee while since we've done one of these, even though we've been to quite a few games. Quite a few games to look over, plus some comments from the manager, the first team manager. And we'll have a wee look at some individual players. And as always, take your questions. Before we get into the show, as most of you know who watch regularly, we are now sponsored by Kitbag. Kitbag right now we're doing a flash sale, up to 65% off a wide range of football gear in general. But you can get up to 65% off, I think it's all 4 Rangers kits this season. You can pick them up for as little as £25. The link for that is in the description if that's something that you fancy, if that's something that you're looking for. And of course, if you use the link in the description, you're helping to support the podcast as well. So thank you for that. William, how are you?
Good, mate. It's been a busy day, second pod of the day, so been a busy boy.
I know you've been doing more pods than me lately.
I know, and that's unusual between us two. Normally, you were always the one that was online every day, but recently it's been me a lot. So if anybody's getting bored seeing me, I do apologise.
I was bored seeing you for the second day I met you, so it's fine. Yeah, so of course, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, share. We appreciate that, the B team stuff isn't for every Rangers fan, which is absolutely fine. But if you know somebody who is interested in the B team, wants kept up to date, wants all the latest news and updates, then let them know about it, share it about. We attend, I would say, William, between me and you, well, pretty much you, probably 90% of the B team games.
Yeah, we're probably not far off that. We obviously miss the odd one for first team been playing and stuff like that, which is just unfortunate that the first team will kick off at the same time as the B team, and you can't be in 2 places at once. So, obviously, I think when we've got Trinent at home soon, and then we're away at Livingston, I'll probably be at the B team game that day because I probably won't go to Livingston. But obviously, it's just dependent on what you're looking.
Oh, I hope William hasn't cut off quite quickly into the show, because then it's just me, and William knows far more about the B team than I do. So yeah, if you bear with us for just 1 second, folks, and I will see if I can get William back on. Give me 2. Okay, folks, we will be joined back by William in a few moments. So before we do, what I will say very, very quickly is if you've got any questions at all, I will try my best to answer them while we are waiting on William. So please do get your questions in the comments. I will just quickly go over the game that we were at last night, me and William. We were at the Gretna game. It was a surprise for me because I have seen a lot of the B team this season, and we certainly did not perform to the best of our abilities. The first half, I would say Rangers probably controlled. They controlled most of the game. Gretna didn't offer much of a threat to be fair, which was to be expected. That's why they're sitting towards the bottom of the table. The first goal came. It was basically a tap in for Robbie Ure, and Robbie Ure is somebody who we will certainly be coming on to discuss. He's obviously had a first team appearance, but yeah, last night. But in fact, both goals were tap ins for Robbie Ure, but he was in the right place at the right time. I actually spoke to Robbie after the game last night, just as this question comes in from Ofra Hill. Obviously, he means Ure, but he said use. Ure scored twice. How was his overall performance? To be brutally honest, and this is actually something that me and William will go into talk about a lot more once he comes back. I hate to talk about the B team the same way that we talk about the first team. Because to be fair, these are all young boys who don't have any first team experience, don't have great experience at playing competitive football in terms of where they're playing now in the Lowland League. But overall, last night the performance wasn't great. Robbie admitted that to me in the post match. He said something along the lines of, the manager wants them to go out there and entertain the people who come along to watch because they very much appreciate every single person who goes along to watch. And the performance was not up to that standard. However, he was happy that he got his goals. Like I say, both tap-ins, but he was in the right place at the right time. I think a lot of views over the last kind of 2 or 3 academy reviews have heard me talk about a certain Aaron Lyle, who for me, personally, and I'm not a coach, I'm not a scout, I'm not in any way fit to judge players on a professional level. But for me, Aaron is certainly a player who excites. If any of you haven't been down to watch the B team, I highly suggest that you go and watch them and go and have a look at Aaron. He's usually number 10. I think he's an absolutely fantastic player. He's got such quick feet. He's intelligent. He's very good at passing the ball. And even Aaron wasn't at his sparkling best last night. Spent most of the game, actually, for me, playing a lot deeper, which, in my opinion, isn't his best position. But he spent a lot of the game playing a lot deeper. But please do keep your eye out for him. He's an absolutely smashing player. Graham, heard Ure wants a move. Got to give these lads a chance. I haven't heard anything at all about Robbie wanting a move outside the B team. I haven't heard anything from that, but that is something that I will certainly be putting to William. Paul's asking, Evening Martin, good 3 points, top of the league and a game in hand. What will happen if they win the league? I was asked this on Twitter earlier, and the brutal answer is I don't know. Firstly, Rangers B, Celtic B and Hearts B cannot get promoted. So, for example, if the league was to stay the way it was just now, then Rangers B would finish top of the league. Tranent would finish, Tranent would finish second. So Tranent would then go on as league winners, if you like, and they would go into the playoffs. Rangers B can't go into the playoffs. But the more interesting question on top of that is, would Rangers lift a trophy? And the answer to that is purely, I don't know. I really, really don't know. But I am so glad that I can be rejoined by William. Because you left me in a wee bit of a tough spot there, William. I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't even know what happened, to be honest. I was talking, then all of a sudden the thing rebooted. There must have been some type of update going on or something like that. So what can you do?
The one show that I would not like to be left alone myself and get something wrong.
I did it on purpose just to upset you.
You've done it on purpose. You absolutely done it on purpose. If you see very quickly before we talk about players, before we talk about fixtures, before we talk about results, Paul put in not Paul, sorry. Where's the comment gone? Let's say Graham Brown. Heard Ure wants a move, got to give these lads a chance now. William, I haven't heard any rumour or any talk of Robbie wanting out of the club. Have you heard anything?
I think that Football Insider posted something earlier about Robbie potentially.
Right.
See, to be honest, I did read the article, but it didn't make a lot of sense, to be honest, when I read it, because some of the things that were written in it just aren't the case. I don't see why Rangers would have offered Robbie less money than he's currently on. Like, I don't think that would happen on a personal level.
No.
And just some of the stuff in the article didn't make sense. So my personal point of view was it's not an accurate thing that's been put out there. That's just my personal view. I mean, I've not confirmed that with anybody at the club, but I just thought some of the stuff that was within the article didn't kind of stack up, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no way a player with Robbie's potential, and even if you want to go as far as to say sell-on value, which look, Rangers aren't looking at that. They're looking at Robbie's potential and can he make it into the first team. But even with all that said, there's no way Rangers are offering him less money than what he's already on. No chance.
I mean, I would have thought the bare minimum that Rangers would offer Robbie is what he's already on. So I would be very surprised if they've offered him less, especially given that he scored 22 goals this season in all competitions, including the friendlies. So I think if you offered somebody less money that scored that amount of goals and has had 2 games for the first team and scored as well. So, yeah, that didn't add up to me on a personal level.
No, 100% not. Before, while you chucked it, I was really, really badly going over last night's game.
Right.
But I think we'll park that.
Okay.
Because I don't know what way you want to do this tonight, but I was going to do the B team first and then the under 18s. But do you want to go under 18s first?
No, I mean, just fire away with the B team. That's
just go with the B
absolutely
teams. Right, so where did we leave it off last time? Where were Rangers?
I think what I checked the dates, so since the last podcast, we've had Dalbeattie, we've had the Glasgow Cup game against Partick Thistle, we've had the Open Goal game, the Gala Fairydean game, and the Gretna game. So it's been quite a lot of games.
Right. The one that jumps out, obviously, is the Partick Thistle.
Yeah.
So if you want to remind us all what happened in that.
Well, that was obviously the first game in the Glasgow Cup group stage for us. It finished Rangers 5, Partick 1. Tony Weston came into the team that day and scored an absolutely unbelievable goal. One of the best goals you'll see this season. Then further goals for Zach Lovelace, Charlie Lindsay, James Graham and Robbie Ewer made it a pretty comprehensive win. Partick had a couple of guys that were on the fringes of the first team playing, and then there was obviously some younger age group players as well. So it was one of those ones where I'm sure Partick could have put out a stronger team if they'd chosen to do so. In the end, it was a pretty comfortable one at the training ground. The game had to be played on the Astro as well, because obviously that was at the time when there was a heavy freeze. So they weren't able to use the grass pitch, which it's not ideal to be playing against teams like Partick Thistle on the Astro, but needs must if they just wanted to get the game to go ahead.
Right, you mentioned a name there that I think would be interesting to talk about for a couple of minutes. Tony Weston.
Yeah.
Was out on loan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Partick Thistle, because I've got this wrong in the past.
No, that's right.
I don't think it worked out great. If we're being honest, it didn't work out great for him. Came back, obviously played in that Glasgow Cup game, scored that goal that you talked about, and now he's went back out on loan to Cove Rangers, which I think is a very good loan. Cove are a good team. I think that does he have to impress at Cove now? Is it at that point for Tony where we've got Zach, we've got Robbie playing in that position? We'll come to the manager's comments on the league that they're playing in, but for Tony, is it important now that it's not just about going out and making the mistakes, etc., and getting the experience? He has to go out and impress now, doesn't he?
Yeah, look, I think even for his own self, to be honest with you, it's important. Tony's out of contract in the summer. Obviously, I think he put a post, or his girlfriend put a post out to say that they're going to become parents. So obviously, congratulations to Tony and Madison.
Congratulations.
On, that news. But yeah, look, from Tony's perspective, if he doesn't have a career at Rangers after this season, then he has to probably do well at Cove for other teams to take notice of what he's been doing. Obviously, the first half of the season, I'm sure Tony wasn't happy about it. When he went there, he probably thought he would have played more. Instead, he spent a lot of time on the bench, which isn't ideal for him and his development as a player. He's obviously went to Cove, who are in the same position in the Championship. So he just needs to try and push on between now and the end of the season and see what happens come the summer. At the moment, I think Tony might well leave, but things can happen really quickly in football. And if Tony has a successful end to the season, it might be that the club offer him another contract. But he's obviously got to decide himself where his future lies, because he might not want to hang about at Rangers just to go out and loan again.
Yeah, I know it's not always about the level that the
Yeah.
players are at for Rangers. We've spoke to Craig. We've had a wee bit of an insight into how they view loans, etc., etc. But I suppose as it currently stands, Tony's playing at a higher level than both Zach and Robbie. Do you think if he goes out and he has a really, really, really good spell at Cove, that he maybe could try and force his way back into that not even just the B team, but into the first team? Do you see any pathway at all for him?
It's tough when you've already had, like, Robbie's made his 2 appearances this year. The fact Zach's only just turned 17, the club paid a 6-figure fee to obviously bring Zach in as well. I think it's probably fair to say that come the summer, if Tony's wanting to develop as a footballer and to play more games, it's probably going to be away from Rangers. That's my gut instinct, because I just think at his age, he's been up here a couple of years now. He had a really good season in the Lowland League. He scored a lot of goals. I think a lot of people thought maybe a League One or a Championship loan would be good for Tony. Obviously, he went to Partick Thistle. That hasn't worked out. He's come back for a short period, and then he's went out to join Cove. The worry would be that he doesn't score a lot of goals at Cove either, and then come the summer, I'm sure there's still English clubs that would show interest in Tony, especially maybe like League Two, maybe conference teams would maybe have a lot of interest in Tony. But he's just got to decide himself where his future lies, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about, like Rangers and making it at Rangers. It's about this kid and the sort of development in his career as to where he is. I mean, at the end of the day, like, Rangers did pay a fee for Tony to bring him in from Blackpool, so they've seen something in him. But unfortunately, see, every year in football, you kind of drop further down the pecking order if you're not, like, taking that step up. And since then, obviously, Robbie Ewer's really pushed on. They've obviously signed Zach Lovelace. We've signed Antonio Cholak. So there's a lot went on since then, and that's the real difficulty of being a young striker at Rangers. You need to be almost better than anything in the first team to get that chance to be good enough.
Yeah, and like William's saying, we paid a 6-figure sum for Tony as well. It wasn't a small amount of money we paid for him.
No, and that's the thing. Like, it's not. I mean, there was a lot of clubs interested in Tony when Rangers did get him, and I think there was a lot of excitement around getting Tony at the time, because people obviously perceived him to be somebody who would maybe be on the kind of brink of the B team, first team. And obviously, like, he has come on and made his debut, against Hearts, which I'm sure he thoroughly enjoyed. That was a great moment for him. But I think it's fair to say since then things haven't worked out quite as well as he would have liked. And it's obviously a decision for him to make between now and the summer as to where he wants his future to be.
Yeah. I was actually just double checking that I wasn't still on mute, because since I've been telling people to stay on mute, I've and come off it because they keep forgetting. I keep forgetting to come off mute. I was asked, I can't remember who was talking to me about it. I may have been today in work, actually, talking about the B team, or it may have been somebody on Twitter. There have been a few games lately, and we'll come to the open goal game in a wee second, where the B team have probably dropped points where we haven't expected them to. Or they've been ahead in games and then been pegged back late on, or conceded penalties. But the point I always try to make to people is that, most of our players, if not all the players in our B team, right, are faster, are better technically than most, if not all, players in the Lowland League. But they are still young. They are still developing. I spoke to Brian last night after the game, and Brian reiterated actually what I asked him when I says, I understand it's all about development and trying to get these players ready to move up. But in the result, it's not that the result doesn't matter, because at Rangers the result always matters. But is it performance over result? Because I think we have to remember, William, that these are young guys. They're going to have inconsistencies. They're going to have off days and poor games. And when a lot of stuff goes against them during a game, they don't quite have that experience yet to sometimes always be able to deal with that.
Yeah, look, I don't think we've played our best at times recently. I don't think we've played. I mean, like, I thought last night in particular, we just didn't do a lot of real quality in the final third. That was badly missing last night. Don't get me wrong, like Gretna were very well set up. They were very well drilled. They knew exactly how we were going to play. They set up their stall. They didn't really lose their shape at all during the game. They kept at it for the entire 96, 97 minutes, whatever it was. And just happened to be that Robbie took that last chance that ended up making it 2-1. A draw would have probably been fair. I thought Gretna played really well. The open goal game, I thought we were just naive. 2-1 ahead after Zach's really good goal. I mean, that's as good a goal as you'll see from Zach this season. The way that he ran by a few of them and then smashed it by the goalkeeper. But then in the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game, we just shut off. We didn't defend our box well. We didn't make the right decisions. And then that ball comes into the box and the guy's standing there, free header, and at the back of it. I mean, I would imagine the players are frustrated because there's been quite a few games recently where we've just not done enough. We've not played well enough. We've not moved the ball quickly enough. We've not been clinical enough. So, see, at the end of the day, there's an expectation when Rangers play a lot of teams that they should be running over the top of them. And to a point, they should. You know, there's a lot of talent within that B team. But they do need to find ways of winning games. But I would still like to see more style about it and more like quality, especially in the final third. I do think at times recently we've maybe not been 100% up top. Some of our final quality's been poor. Some of our crossing's not been great. Some of our finishing's been pretty poor as well. But at the end of the day, yeah, they are young players, but there's still a level of expectation at Rangers that we should be doing more and winning more of these games, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. Timothy Sharp and Curry Muncher in the comments.
Right.
2 brilliant points. We're going to come to that a wee bit later on because you're talking about the level and you're talking about the performances. Mick Beale's, the manager, Michael Beale, has had his say on the Lowland League, for good or for bad. I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to remember your comments and I'm going to come back to them.
I'll answer that one quickly because that's obviously Archie has been out for a while. Gaza, basically, I think he said his boot taken off now that he had on after his operation and stuff. So that all seems to be off now. I think Archie will be back reasonably soon. So hopefully by the end of this month, we'll see Archie Stevens back in the under-18s and getting some valuable minutes.
And also, can I just point out to CGM's, CGM's comment as well? That's along the same lines as Curry and Timothy. We're going to be discussing that just after we go over these games for the V team and the under-18s because the development and the number of players coming through and the level at which they develop, Michael Beale sort of had his say. So me and William are going to discuss that. And of course, the loan system as well. But just going quickly back to that open goal game, William. Open goal get a lot of headlines because of who their manager is, their coaching team. Obviously, the podcast is massive. So there's always going to be a light kind of shone on them. I think what disappointed me so much in that game was that for most of the game, we were the better team. I don't think anybody could argue that we were the better team, and we weren't playing at anywhere near the level that we can play at. And I think maybe next season open goal may be different. This is obviously our first season together, spending quite a lot of money to get our players in. But to me, they're a mid-table Lowland League team.
Look, I think they've played some good games this season. I've only seen the highlights of their other games out with Rangers. And look, they've got a lot of guys who have played in like the first and second division in Scotland. Some guys have even played in the championship at points as well. So
and Cup
there's a lot of experience in that team. And then obviously, you can add in Kirky, who was obviously at Rangers and St Mirren. But the reality is, I still think they lack a bit of legs in that team. I think they could maybe send some younger players that can maybe get about the pitch a bit more. Because I do feel at times whenever we've played against them in particular, see when we up the tempo and we play at a higher intensity, they can't cope with that.
No, they can't.
Whereas I felt like we kind of got into first gear and then we kind of stopped and then we get back into gear and we stopped. And I got the feeling, see if we'd put on a sustained period of real good pressure, we would have probably scored a couple more goals, but we just never done it. And that's been the frustration recently, I think, in some of the games, not all the games, but some of them that we have like patches of the game where we play well and then we'll not play well for 25 minutes and you get away with it against some of the opposition in the league. So this is where I think it would be better if there was better tests out there, that there was tougher games, and this is obviously what we're going to touch on kind of later in the podcast.
Yeah, very quickly then, after that open goal game, we bounced back 4-1 win, 4-1, I can't speak tonight, 4-1 win over Gala Ferrydean Rovers. There's somebody on that score sheet who I really, really, really want to talk about. But again, I spoke to Brian Gilmore about him last night as well. And I made the point to Brian that I'm very wary of trying to build up players. And people who watch mind by me saying how good they are, even though I've done it with Aaron Lyle about a million times. But on the score sheet that night, William, was Zach Lovelace, Bailey Rice, Robbie Ure, and Charlie Lindsay. Before I ask you about the player who I want to talk about, who I'm pretty sure you're already aware who that is, that game in general, were you at that game?
No, I was at Ibrox, but I've obviously managed to catch the highlights of the game. I actually spoke to Robbie Fraser up at the training ground as well, up at in the Sunday game when the 16s were playing. I spoke to Robbie, and he was saying he thought the boys played really well in that game, probably their best performance in the league for a wee while, in terms of their movement, their quality, their clinicalness. So I was kind of expecting more of that against Gretna, but clearly that didn't carry on for the game at the weekend to the midweek game. But Robbie seemed quite positive about the performance, the way the boys played, and he was maybe just a wee bit disappointed that they maybe didn't score another couple of goals, because I think they were 3-0 up very early on in the game, so maybe there could have been more goals and more clinical chances taken, but in the end it finished 4-1.
Yeah, and sorry, I just had a sneeze attack. Yeah, and on the score sheet, a young central midfielder, 16 years of age, called Bailey Rice.
Yeah.
William, talk to me about how good this young boy is, and the sky's the limit for him, is it not?
Yeah, look, I think Bailey's very good. I think he's somebody that's just very comfortable on the ball. I'm sure anybody that's seen Bailey would say similar. He's a kid with a bright future in the game, and I think Rangers did extremely well to get Bailey last summer. To be honest, I think most of the guys that go to the game expected Bailey to maybe go to England, because I think there was really good offers on the table by all accounts, but he obviously chose to come to Rangers.
You can see why, William.
Yeah, you can.
Just quickly, I know we've already discussed it.
Yeah.
But obviously the last game we played was last night. That was against Gretna. We won 2-1. Robbie Ure with both goals. We weren't great by any stretch of the imagination. We didn't play well at all. Gretna are down towards the bottom of the league. You would expect us to comfortably deal with Gretna. In fact, me and you spoke before the game and we said, this could be 3-4, a confidence booster for the team if they play well. We didn't play well. No. But the sign of a really good player for me is when the team doesn't play well, and Bailey certainly didn't play his best, he was still, for me, head and shoulders the best player on the park last night.
Yeah, look, I mean, I enjoy watching him play. I just think he's a really smart footballer. He can take the ball out of defence. He can spread the game quite comfortably. He can step up a little bit. He can be very progressive in the final third. He's got a great eye for a final pass. He's somebody that's a very good set piece taker as well from free kicks and penalties. He's just comfortable in most positions, really, Bailey. He's one of those kids that if he had to drop into centre back, I think he would be a pretty good ball playing centre back, to be honest. He's just got a comfortableness about him. And I think the fact he's already basically playing every game for the B team rather than the 18s, I think that shows you where Rangers see Bailey right now in terms of his development and his progression as a footballer.
Yeah, I will be shocked if next season, more so than this season, but next season we don't see him in and around that, a couple of cup games here and there, getting a wee tiny bit of first team experience. I do genuinely think he's that good. I scream and shout every academy pod about young Aaron Lyle. You know my feelings about young Aaron Lyle. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. But Bailey's that one you look at in that team and go, we've got a gem. We've got a real gem there. 100%. Excuse me, I'm struggling. By the way, can I just say to everybody watching as well, I hope that nobody's walking about the streets watching this on their phone out in that weather, because it is horrendous out there. So if you're going to go outside, if you have to go outside, just be careful. They're talking about a certain storm, whose name I will not name, possibly coming back. Let's just say it's a really bad storm from the east. So just be very, very, very careful if you're out and about, because it is horrendous out there. please do like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, give us a wee share as well. And of course on Twitter as well, give us a wee retweet and a share. And this is the last time I'm going to mention it, so forgive me. Obviously, as most people know, the Rangers Rabble is planning on going full time, which would mean attendance at virtually every B team game, reports from every B team game, manager, player reports, reports on every first team game, reactions, build-ups. We're going to be doing loads of stuff for the website, membership pages, loads and loads and loads of stuff. So in order to be able to do that, we have partnered with Kitbag UK. The link is in the description for that. Today and tomorrow, they are doing their Star Buy sale. So you can get the current Rangers home top for £25 if you use the link in the description. You can also get the away third and fourth kits, but you can also get tops from other teams as well across the range that they have there on selected tops. They've got up to 65% off. So if you use the link in the description, I don't think you use code RABBLE20 when it's the Star Buys, but when out with the Star Buys, if you use code RABBLE20, when their big massive sale isn't on, you'll still get 20% off. And every time you use that, you help support the podcast as well. So many thanks to those of you who go along and do that. Well, my amazing salesman skills have thrown me off topic. But like I say, last night, Gretna 2-1. So that leaves the league, the Lowland League table like this. I will read the first 5 teams. Rangers B top on 58 points, and second is Trinent Juniors on 57, and third is the Spartans with 54, Celtic B in fourth with 53, and the University of Stirling in fifth with 52. So tight at the top, William, but we have the tiniest bit of breathing space.
Yeah, look, that's why it was important to win last night, to be honest, was to try and stay top of the league. There's some really tough games coming up, I think, as most people will be aware. You know, we've got Trinent to play, we've got Stirling Uni to play, we've obviously still got the Celtic rearranged game to play. Even Cowdenbeath on Saturday's not going to be easy down there, you know. That'll be a really tough game. Mo Ross was obviously at the game last night having a look at us, so he'll have a good idea after seeing what Gretna did. So I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen similar on Saturday.
I was stuck on mute as well. Curry Muncher Martin, you started talking about a couple of questions and moved right off topic. I'm so sorry. I'm really not feeling well. I don't know. It's just hit me. All of us. It just a sneezing fit hit me, and I don't feel great. If you could remind me, Curry, what I was talking about, then I will certainly bring it back up. Obviously, look, we would absolutely love to win the league. Well, I think it would. Achievement-wise, for a group of young players to come together and go into a league, that albeit, like I've mentioned it before, skill-wise, technical-wise, we are far superior to most, if not all, of the Lowland League teams. But then you've got to add in stuff like horrible pitches. You've got to add in stuff like physicality, which is probably where we've struggled most this season. So to be 9 games away from winning the Lowland League, what kind of achievement would that be?
I mean, it's hard to know what Rangers wanted at the start of the season. If it was to win the league, then it would be the achievement the club wanted. For me, personally, what I wanted was just to see more players stepping up into the first team or being part of the first team. So for me, that's probably more important than winning the league on like kind of my level of looking at things. But obviously, for the players, they've got to this stage of the season, so I'm sure, you know, sort of privately, they're maybe talking about how they would like to win the league. There's still some really difficult games to be played.
Of course.
But, you know, like, if they can take this game on Saturday and they can get the one, then they can move forward to the game after that, etc., etc. It's all they can do is just take one game at a time. And I suppose one of the big things people would point towards is when you're at Rangers, there's an expectation that you're going to win things. So, you know, if the boys can go and win the Lowland League, if they can, you know, sort of win the Glasgow Cup again, it's just good for the mentality of the players as much as it is anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I haven't even broached the question with David McCallum yet, because I'm pretty sure he would tell me exactly where to go. There's a few people asking, William, about reserve football, right?
Yeah.
People are asking if we should go back to having a reserve league, etc., etc. Now, we are going to come and discuss that in a wee second. But there is still a reserve league, but there's just very few teams in it. And the only reason that I know that there's still a reserve league is because Dundee United are in it and my brothers played in it. So that's the only reason that I know there is still a reserve league. But there's not that many teams in it. It's not big. It's not massive.
It's not. I mean, like the reserve league was obviously there kind of prior to COVID, and it was kind of utilised. Rangers obviously did best versus best games as well. It was it was rebooted, I suppose, to a point this season where some of the teams agreed to play in it. I don't think it's maybe worked out quite as well as some teams would have sort of thought it would. It's maybe not been the same level. I think the problem with the reserve league is that when it was reset back up several years ago now, they wanted some of the first team players who were injured, or maybe some of the guys on the fringe of the first team would play in these games, so that it was a good competitive game for some of the younger teams, i.e. maybe Rangers or Celtic or Hearts, etc. But it never really came to fruition that season, in all honesty. And I think that was the year that Rangers won the league. They won the last game against Falkirk 3-1, and we went on to become champions. But since then, it's never been great. For me, I thought the best season was the best versus best games. I know it obviously comes at a big financial cost.
For people that are watching, William, who maybe don't know what that is, can you explain what best versus best is?
It was Rangers basically wanted to play the best teams that they physically could. So we played teams like Ajax. We played teams like Bayern Munich. We played some teams from Belgium. We obviously had Brentford B home and away, I think, during that season as well. We played one of the best teams in Iceland, who apparently have brought through a lot of young players. I'm just trying to think of some of the games we played a lot of tough games that season. And I've got to say,
this wasn't a league or anything. This was just
no. This was just like this was just one-off games, but they were highly competitive. Clearly, like playing Ajax away, playing Bayern Munich away, all of these kind of things was great for the players' development. And then obviously the sort of UEFA Youth League games have been great for the players as well over the last few years. Like, coming up against really good quality players. And I think they're the true development games for a lot of youngsters. And I've always been a big advocate of maybe having like an Atlantic League or a European League that's just for players under the age of 19. Let's get the best teams from, say, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, Norway.
Are you advocating a youth Super League?
Basically, I think for all the people that complain about the Colts thing, right, the only way the Colts thing's ever going to disappear is if Rangers go and play somewhere else. And if that doesn't happen, then what other options do Rangers have? This is the difficulty that the club have got. And I say the best versus best are not cheap. If you're having to fly to a country, take, like 20 players with you, take all the coaching staff, book hotel rooms. It's not cheap to do that all the time. And I think that's why I'm not so sure it would happen next season or the season after, because it's a huge financial outlay, and the board would basically need to fund a lot of it.
Yeah, they would. We'll come back to that, though. We'll come back to that when we're discussing the first team managers' comments. Just very, very quickly before we move on to the under-18s, because there is a game I want to discuss, and there's a massive reason why I want to discuss it. But we have a question in for Paul. Martin, sorry if you see my question. Just asking, see the man Mountain at left back for the B team. Do you think he will stay after the summer? I think you mean centre back, because left back's Robbie Fraser. And the centre back is Alex Papi. I was told how to pronounce his name last night by Brian. So
I mean, it could be John Lee or it could be Alex. It could be either one of those two. So if Paul can confirm what one it is,
well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We've spoken about John Lee before, Willie. So that last night actually it was Alex Papi's first start for the team. So really, really difficult to judge a player when he's not had a lot of minutes, and especially a young player when he's not had a lot of minutes. But what did you make his performance?
I thought he did okay. You know what I did? I mean, I think I said to you before the game, I wasn't expecting a huge amount from Alex, given that he hadn't played a lot of football for quite a while. He made one or two mistakes in the game, but I think there's a kind of level that it's going to take him time to get back to anywhere near like the level that he maybe feels as though he could be at. I think the club have put him through quite a heavy fitness like sort of program in the last few weeks to get him like sort of good enough to start games. He obviously played, what was that, about 65 he played last night, something round about that. So So he's going to have to build up his overall game time. There's obviously Glasgow Cup games coming up that he'll probably have some minutes in. They might even utilise him again over the next 1 or 2 games in the Lowland League, because all he's going to be able to do is build up his natural fitness and his game time by playing games.
For what it's worth, William, from what I've seen, I'll give you a snapshot of what I've seen, and then you can tell me that I have no idea what I'm talking about, which should probably be very valid, right? Like I say, very difficult to judge, but for me, very strong, very quick, actually, really quick for a guy that well built. Listen, duels and stuff like that, there was no problem. He was winning his headers. He looked very, very, very good physically. You could see that he was lacking match sharpness, which of course you would 100% expect. The only thing I've seen, and I think you could maybe put this down to match sharpness, and I don't want to sit and criticise. I know we've only got him until the summer. I don't want to criticise him too much. The only thing that I've seen was lack of awareness, not smelling the danger. There was so many times he had to react to situations that maybe if he was paying a wee bit more attention, he maybe could have intercepted the ball or seen it coming. But when he had to react, he done it. He done it well. He was like Paul says, he's a man mountain. He's so quick. He doesn't shirk a tackle. He's very, very good in the air. I think we need to see him play more before we can judge too much.
Yeah, look, it's what you would consider a sort of low risk signing. You know, they gave him a deal until the summer. They're going to get him fit, which I think they're getting quite close to getting, you know, to where they would like him to be. But after that, it's only games that are going to help him improve. You know, you can train all day,
100%.
every day, but the reality is, like, you need to get back out in the pitch. I can't remember if it was 12 months or 18 months that he's not really played for, so he's missed a lot of football. So for the kid to just get back on the pitch is probably a good thing. So there has to be a degree of, let's be patient with him, let's give him like sort of time to get back to that level again. So yeah, I mean, let's see how he copes between now and the end of the season, and then the club can make a judgment on Alex. The first time I seen him was that bounce game against Queen's Park, and I thought he did well. Obviously, since then he's spent a large part of the time just, you know, sort of growing his fitness and improving that behind the scenes at the training ground.
Yeah, 100%. On to the 18s, under 18s.
Yep.
The last game for the under 18s was at the training centre against Dundee United. Me and Drew were both at the game, William, along with most of my family. It was a game that I would imagine that Rangers wouldn't have expected to have too many problems in. You know, the Dundee United under 18s haven't exactly been in sparkling form. To my knowledge, they're at the bottom of the league. They haven't been playing great this season. Probably put up a bit of a better fight in the first half than Rangers would have expected. Although Rangers were the better team, by far, and in a way the better team. But Dundee United put up a spirited fight in the first half. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, I think just to go over some of the kind of results recently at that level, we've been a wee bit inconsistent. So
very.
I don't think Rangers can ever be seen as they're definitely going to win every 18s game, because we have been quite inconsistent this year. Between the last podcast and this one, we've drew 0-0 with Hamilton Accies, which was probably a good result because Hamilton are actually pretty strong. One of their boys scored last night in the first team that sent them through to the SPFL Trust Trophy final. We lost 4-3 at Mullen. That was a really poor performance, in all honesty.
Yeah.
We were really, really, really poor against St Mullen. There's no excuse for how we played that day. And then we had the 4-0 win against Motherwell in the Cup, but Rangers did call back in Zach Lovelace and Bailey Rice for that game. Greg Allen started and Jacob Pazikas was in goal. So it was probably about as strong a 18 team out with Archie Stevens that could play, and we were very comfortable. The 18s game against Dundee United, yeah, look, I think it's fair to say Dundee United haven't been great this year. They've took a couple of real heavy defeats. In the end, 4-0 was okay. I think Dundee United had a couple of chances. They could have took it 1-0 that might have made the game a little bit different. But in the end, Rangers played some decent stuff. Tyler Pasnick scored a great goal. I think that was the third goal Tyler scored. It was top bin. And obviously Chris Eddy, who's one of the 16s, come on, he scored the fourth. But yeah, look, I mean, at the moment, the 18s are a wee bit up and down. We don't seem to be able to have that level of consistency. We've got St Mirren away on Friday night. So we could do with kind of getting back to, beating that team as well, because the 4-3 defeat at the training grounds, I say that's one of our poorest this season. We were 4-1 down, I think, in that game against St Mirren. So that was really, really, really poor performance, and I don't think anybody could say otherwise, if I'm totally honest. And that seems to be this team this year. They're either quite good or they're really bad. Like, there doesn't seem to be any middle ground. It's hard. I mean, they've played some really good games this year, but they've also had other games where they've not played well at all. I mean, with a 4-0 defeat at Hamilton Accies, which was really poor. Obviously, that defeat to St Mirren, which, as he yet again, it's just not good enough, because there's a certain level of expectation, and I get that people say you shouldn't put pressure on young players, but unfortunately, when you're at Rangers, there is that level of expectation. So when people see that coming out in social media, of course there's going to be criticism, and whether that's right or wrong is open to the individual. But I do think at times this year we haven't played anywhere near the level that we can do, and it's something that, if these boys want to step up and play for the B team, there's going to need to be a big improvement, because you're going from playing against 16, 17-year-old boys to playing against men, and that's a big difference for a lot of young players.
I know Finlay Curtis as well scored a peachy goal against Dundee United. I thought, Finlay's a very, very good player. Can I just mention
one of those guys? I mean, like you obviously spoke about him before the game, and Finlay's got a natural ability to score goals, and it's not really something that a lot of people talk about. He scored, I'll just double check, he scored 12 goals this season, and he's mainly playing in the midfield.
Yeah.
He's not always playing as a 9 or whatever. I mean, although he has a few times this season, to be fair, he scored 12 goals, Finlay. He's very composed finisher, and that's the one thing I really like about him. I'm happy that he finally got his contract, and that, he's going to be with us for the next kind of 18 months or so at the bare minimum. But I really like Finlay. I think he's a really, really good player.
I think he's definitely one of those to watch. Put a wee asterisk beside his name, because he is a very, very good player. Can I just give a shout out? And I feel like I have to, William. Like I say, first half, Dundee United were okay. They created a couple of chances. They kind of went toe-to-toe with Rangers. Second half, it could have been more than 4. Rangers totally dominated the second half of that game, and they ran away with the game. But there was a young boy in the Dundee United team. I believe he was number 13. And I'm not going to mention any names until I've had your opinion. But it seemed to me that if Dundee United were going to do anything, it was coming through number 13.
You know what? I thought the first half Dundee United played some decent stuff. I thought they moved the ball well. I thought they could have done a little bit better in the final third. I thought the way that they moved the ball from middle to front was good. They just lacked that final quality. But I suppose at the end of the day, when you talk about Dundee United, the biggest thing for this season is just the amount of goals they concede.
Yeah.
Which is, at the end of the day, it's okay scoring 1 or 2 goals, but if you're conceding 3 or 4 or 5 in every game, you're not going to win that many games at that level. But from Dundee United's perspective, see if they're playing younger players at that age group who are 15 and 16, and they're getting something out of playing at that level, that's more important than winning or losing games. That's what I would say, because not everything is about winning all the time. But I think there has to be a degree of let the young players play, let them develop, let them play, let them enjoy themselves. Let them get used to playing at a higher level where they're being pushed to improve as a footballer, because that's what's happening with Bailey. He's getting pushed into the B team at 16. That's why it's good for some of the under 16s being pushed into the 18s recently as well. It's good for them. It's good for them to be, sort of tested against boys that are a little bit older, that are a little bit stronger, that are a little bit kind of more street smart in terms of where they are in the football pitch. So all of these things can only help them improve, in my honest opinion.
Yeah. Welcome to the Rabble, Stacey Louise Walker. Thank you for joining as a member. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. All your support is, and I hope you enjoy all the extra videos and all the extra content, that back catalogue that is there for you to watch whenever you so please, Stacey. So thank you very, very much for joining up. And of course, I was talking about my little brother Adam, who I thought in the first half was Dundee United's best player. Very composed in the ball, a couple of nice touches. Probably should have scored as well, cut inside. Just a poor shot. And I don't like to praise Dundee United, William, as you know. But when your brother plays for them, I just had to point it out because I thought he was by far and away their best player, and I wanted you to mention it so that it wouldn't be coming through my family tinted eyes, is what I was trying to drag out of you. But
Although
yeah, I thought
your mum did give me a tenner at the game to say that tonight,
she
so
did.
thanks
She
very
did.
much
She
for
gave me
that.
20 quid, to be fair, because she knows how much I don't like Dundee United. But there you go. Yeah. No, Adam was very, very good. I was very, very proud of him in that first half. Second half, Rangers just blew him away, and there was nothing that Adam or anybody could do. Rangers were just too good. Okay, so the main topic of conversation, and we're 50 minutes in, by the way. What did you say to me before we started? Half an hour, Martin. Half an hour, and that'll be it. That'll be it. So, do you want to run over very quickly what Michael Beale, the first team manager, has said about Rangers B's participation in the Lowland League?
Yeah, look, I think it kind of stems from a bigger point where they were asking about Alex Lowry and Leon King and Adam Devine, and taking that step from the Lowland League into the first team, and he was kind of pointing towards it. It's almost impossible to take a player directly from the Lowland League and put him into the first team, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Like the reality is, you're playing against part-time teams in the Lowland League, and when you play for Rangers, you're playing against the best players that Scotland have to offer in the top flight. So, yeah, of course, it's a massive jump up. I think it's a fine balancing act for the football club where they're trying to have young players playing in meaningful games. This was the problem with best versus best to a point, that they were just always friendlies. Whereas at least in the Lowland League, they've got competitive fixtures. The argument is that the quality of the fixtures from week to week isn't good enough for some of the young players at the football club. And everybody would accept that. Like, nobody's going to say that Rangers playing like sort of Dalbeattie Star, who are sitting bottom of the league, that have conceded 100 goals or something like that. That isn't going to help our young players in the long term. It clearly isn't. But you do need to have some type of competitive football. And at the moment, as it currently stands, the Lowland League was the only real option that Rangers had. So it's a fine balancing act, Martin. I mean, like, obviously you've been to enough games with me to know that some games are good competitive fixtures. Other games can be so one-sided, and like, the boys are not taking anything out of those games. Whereas you can take like things out from some of the other games where the players have been tested by certain teams in terms of how they play, if it's a physical game, if it's more of a counter-attacking game. So like, you can take things from those games. Some of the other games this season, we do have to say, when Rangers are winning by 5 and 6 goals, I don't really think as a team we take quite as much out of those as maybe some people would maybe think.
There's so much to unpack for us, right? Because I think this is probably a serious debate to have with maybe somebody who's involved, maybe somebody from Rangers, although I very much doubt we would ever get that debate. But there's so many different facets to it. Now, firstly, you mentioned there about, some games in the Lowland League are very competitive, very good games, very enjoyable. Others, it's Rangers for 90 minutes. It's how many goals do they want to score.
Yeah.
It can be not boring, because it's never boring to see Rangers winning by 5 or 6 goals, but predictable. Now, one of the big things Rangers are trying to do is to get people to come to Dumbarton and away, but obviously more so Dumbarton, come to Dumbarton and watch the B team. Now, you can have this same debate about the women's game as well, right? But we'll have it about the B team, because this is what we're here to talk about. If you are going to games knowing that the Rangers B team are going to win 5, 6, 7, the teams that they aren't playing aren't that good, that can put people off from going, So
Yeah.
I take it from a financial point of view, I take it from that. But, and this would be the same rebuttal to every single point that we'll discuss. What other option do Rangers have?
Well, that is the difficulty at the moment. There's not really anything else, and that's the real problem that the club have got. And I kind of find it hard to be really critical, because I don't know where they would go if they weren't playing in the Lowland League this season. Because I think it's clear to anybody that's looked at the reserve league, that wouldn't have been enough for Rangers. And it wouldn't have helped them over the course of the season either. So I'm not really too sure what the best thing would be to do. As like, my personal preference is either a British style youth league where maybe we play the best English teams in some type of group or some type of league format, or another kind of competition where we're playing, as I say, teams from Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Holland, whoever else was looking to be involved in it. Because to me, that at least would be a great test every week. You'd be playing against different styles of teams. You'd be playing against, like teams that have got a different ethic. Who maybe so when Rangers get into these games, they're not the favourites getting into all of these games. In general, in the Lowland League, Rangers are expected to win pretty much all of the games. If Rangers get into this, like a British youth league or a kind of European style youth league, Rangers wouldn't be expected to win every single game. And to me, that's a good thing. It can be a mentality shift for the players as well, where maybe they're forced to do something different that they've not had to do before, that maybe they have to think outside the box when they're on the pitch playing against a team that play a totally different system that maybe we haven't seen that often. Like, to me, that's the way of helping young players and developing young players. But moving forward, I don't know what the financial cost for that would be, but I do feel like something needs to happen in the next few years, or we're just going to continue to lose good young players who might have had the opportunity to play for Rangers because we're not able to bridge the gap between where the B team is and where the first team is.
How difficult is it, do you think, for people like Craig Robertson, Craig Mulholland, other people on the board who have helped to manoeuvre and manufacture this move for the B team, to hear the first team manager coming out and almost, I mean, I don't want to put words in Michael Beale's mouth, but what he's pretty much said is it's almost to near impossible for a B team player to then make that move to the first team because of the level that he's playing at.
Yeah, look, it's so difficult. I think it's taken into context how he said it. I think the way that it's been put out there makes it sound a lot worse. I think what he was basically trying to say, and I think that's what like most people that heard what he said, is that I couldn't take a player from the B team that played against Gretna last night and put them into my starting lineup on Saturday type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what he was trying to put out there. And he's right, because you couldn't, you can't judge somebody's performance against Gretna and then put them in against Aberdeen at Ibrox. Do you know what I mean? And that's the fine line in football. Rangers obviously put a lot of work into trying to get into the Lowland League, because at the time, obviously, COVID was still a thing. They pretty much said they weren't going to have a reserve league. Rangers wanted to get the boys out there to play games. You weren't able to travel at that point. If everybody wasn't vaccinated, if you couldn't go on the plane, if you couldn't get into the hotel, and there was so many problems. So the offer for the Lowland League was a real, sort of big thing for Rangers to just be allowed to play. It's obviously continued on this season. There is now talk that there could be something different next season or the season after that. But, I mean, the simple reality is we do need to be tested more, and we do need more like sort of highly competitive football matches.
Mm-hmm.
Because I watched somebody like Darvel playing against Aberdeen. Darvel are playing Falkirk. If Rangers were playing against teams like that, and Auchinleck and Beeve and Colwynnon and all these other teams that are top teams at that level, those games would probably be more competitive than what is in the Lowland League at the moment. And this is the fine line that maybe the SFA need to step in, maybe the SPFL need to come together, all the clubs come together and look at the structure of Scottish football. Because, see, to me, there needs to be a drastic change in Scottish football, and the only people that are able to do that are the people that are running the game. And the only way that's going to happen is if teams are open to change. Sadly, in Scottish football, as we've seen over the years, a lot of teams are fearful of getting relegated, because once they get relegated, they're not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big fear. I mean, there's like Cowdenbeath. They were in the Championship not that long ago. Then they dropped into League One, League Two, and now they're sitting in the bottom half of the Lowland League. And that's how quickly things can go. And I think that's the fear for a lot of the teams in League Two. If they drop into the Lowland League, then they might never come back. So they're not going to vote through a lot of these changes, which would maybe see like sort of 2 or 3 teams come up from each of the levels. Because see, if you get 3 teams coming up each season from the levels below, it would make the Lowland League stronger. because there would be better
Do
teams in
you
it.
know what the sad thing is, William? The sad thing is that there is so much potential in Scottish football. You've just rounded off about 5 or 6 teams, including your Darvos, your Auchinlecks, God, even your Pollocks, etc. Right? There is so much potential, and there's so much money in a lot of these teams as well to get promoted through the leagues and make Scottish football better, make Scottish football more competitive.
Yeah.
But like you say, Scottish football is such a closed shop, and people will look and they will say, right, first of all, they complained that Rangers B, Celtic B, and Hearts B were in the Lowland League. Oh, it's a monopoly to help the big teams. Then, of course, there will be they'll be fighting against the ability for Rangers B, Celtic B, Hearts B to get promoted into League Two, even though that can only help Scottish football. So it seems that no matter what Rangers or anybody else who are maybe seen as a bigger team try and do to improve and get more people engaged in Scottish football, because of people like likes of Dundee United's, likes of even a Motherwell, are so fear of the consequences that it might affect them. There's never going to be change.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm just looking now at like the West of Scotland League. You've got Darvo, Beef Juniors, Pollock, Auchinleck, Clydebank, Hurlford, Irvine Meadow. See if you took even some of the teams further down there, like Arthurlie or Troon or Co1, and whoever you're talking about, right? Those teams would probably be a more difficult challenge for Rangers in the Lowland League than some of the teams that are already in it. And this is where I think it was last summer where I think it was kind of proposed that there would be 2 teams up and 2 teams down, or it was 3 teams up and 3 teams down. And straight away the Lowland League were like, no, we don't want that. Because when you look at what happened last year to like Vela leaving, who were obviously getting pummeled every single week in the Lowland League, I think they're sitting like bottom of the league that they're in now as well. Do you know what I mean? So that's how far they've fallen. If you look at this year, like obviously Dalbeattie Star look as though they're about to drop off a cliff as well. And then you look at some of the other teams that are down the bottom of that league, they're not going to vote for change because they know that they're the ones that's going to drop out. See if it's 3 up and 3 down. See the bottom 3 that's in the Lowland League right now. Why would they vote that through? Why would they vote
Self-preservation,
it
isn't it?
through? Because it's self-preservation. And see the reality, see whether people like it or not, that'll never change.
No, but that's why the voting rules have to be changed. I mean, it's ridiculous that in the top league right now, you need 10 to 1 to make change.
I mean, like for instance, I'm trying to bring up the Lowland League table, right? So the bottom 3 teams at the moment are Dalbeattie Stars on 6 points from 25 games,
Which is just ridiculous.
right? Edinburgh Uni are on 7 points from 26 games. Between the two of them, they've won 3 games out of 51, right? They're on minus 160 goals between the two of them, right? So what are they bringing to the Lowland League that somebody like sort of Darvo or Auchinleck or Pork? I mean, like if they come into that league, they're straight away some of the toughest teams in that league. You only need to look at Trinent. Like obviously Trinent come up last season after beating Darvo, right? They're second top of the league. They've won 17 out of 28 games. They're a point behind
They could
Rangers.
conceivably go to League Two.
Yeah, they could, because see, maybe you look at Trinent, they at the moment are the team that's going to get, that sort of game against the Highland League team, the 2-legged game over the Highland League teams, and then you've got to beat the team that's bottom of League Two. I think Trinent are more than good enough to do that. And that's the fear for the League Two teams as well. You see every time that 1 or 2 teams come up from like the West of Scotland or whatever league, they would easily beat most teams in League Two. I mean, look at Darvo, right? I fully expect Darvo to beat Falkirk because at the end of the day, like, they spend good money on that squad, right? And it's the same for many of the teams round about them. I mean, like Trinent just went out and signed the boy James Keatons, who's played a lot of Scottish Championship football until the last year or two, where he's been a little bit older, he's dropped down the levels. But I mean, they're sitting second in the Lowland League. They've come in and pretty much strolled that league this year, in reality. Whereas people are trying to tell me that Darvo couldn't come up and win that league, they're lying. So like, it's utter nonsense. It'll always be about self-preservation. Nothing will ever change on that. See, the only good thing this season in the Lowland League is that the University of Stirling are sitting third. They've won 17 out of 26 games, and that's a lot of talented young players that are doing well there. That's been one of the big standouts for me in the Lowland League this year. But at the end of the day, I don't see them ever voting for change. I don't see them ever doing what's right for the future of the game in here, because I don't know why they would. Because
I know.
why would you vote yourself out the league? Because that's what you'd be doing if you're Dalbeatty. That's what you'd be doing if you're Edinburgh Uni. That's what you'd be doing if you're East Stirlingshire. Why would you vote change? Because you're never going to do it.
Just look at how much East Stirling have fell. Anyway, just back to the manager's comments quickly, and we'll finish up. Yeah. I suppose maybe one of the more important points that we haven't touched on about, and look, this could be getting taken completely out of context. So, you've got to be. We do have to be careful. However, in saying that, I will be a complete hypocrite and ask the question anyway. How do you think that made the players feel in the B team? Do you think that was could that have crushed confidence, or do you think the fact that we're not 100% sure exactly what he meant, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's absolutely zero pathway? But if a player's reading the comments, as a player saying to himself, I have no chance.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, when I watched the press conference back, and then I was trying to listen to exactly what he was trying to say when he said it. But yeah, of course, it's got to be a bit of a dagger to the heart, isn't it, for some of the young players? Because he's pretty much saying that even if you step up and play for the first team, it's not going to happen like sort of directly for the Lowland League. You look at like Leon and Alex and Adam, like they've had to come up and train for months and months and months with the first team before they've come into the first team. So you're basically going away and like you're retraining again to become a first team player at Rangers, and you're having to get into training every day. You're having to show up and show up and show up, and like sort of continue to develop and improve. So yeah, it must have been tough to hear for some of the young players. And I don't know, maybe if after that press conference, maybe Michael Beale went and spoke to the players and maybe said, look, that was maybe taken a bit out of context. That's not what I actually meant. Because, if people took it the other way, you're basically saying it's the guys that are in the Lowland League this year, they're never going to be good enough to play for Rangers. And that's the two sides of it. And it depends how you took those comments. I took it that he just wouldn't take a player out of the Lowland League for last night and put him in the team for Saturday. But I also see the argument that is playing in the fifth tier of Scottish football enough to develop young players for Rangers first team? I think the answer to that is no. And it's probably trying to find that balance where some players need to go out and loan and play in the Championship, etc., and be like sort of progressive to make it to Rangers.
Yeah, and look, let's hope that's not the case. Yeah. Let's hope that we do see more youth coming through. It's just, I don't even think we can use the excuse of what happened to us as a club.
No.
The demotions and stuff. Rangers have never been great at bringing through youth. I think we need to be brutally honest about that. And if again we're being brutally honest, William, when we'll finish on this, but nothing's really changed on that front. We could, if you like, we got lucky with Nathan in respects that he had to come into the team because we had nobody else when Tav was out, and he played okay, played well. He scored a goal in Europe, but he didn't play a lot of games, and he was bought by Everton because obviously Everton seen something in him. So we got lucky with Nathan.
Yeah.
If you take it all the way back, Alan Hutton played for 6 months away to Tottenham. Barry Ferguson's probably the only example I can see of somebody who's came through our youth academy and actually made a real success at our football club. And then out with that, people who have came through our academy and and broke into the first team and then moved on. You're talking John Fleck, you're talking Greg Wild, and Greg didn't exactly go on to hit the heights that he probably should have. So no matter what way you want to dress it up, no matter what way you want to look at it, the Rangers Academy for 30 years has effectively served zero purpose.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's only a handful of players that have truly come into the squad and been a difference maker. You've got Alan McGregor, you've got Alan Hutton, obviously did a really good job. Barry Ferguson clearly stands out in that one. You've got guys like Chris Burke, Charlie Adam. They kind of fluctuated, didn't they, between being good enough and sitting on the bench. And that's the problem, mate. And it always will be that same problem. You probably need to be outstanding, like sort of beyond, probably better than what the first team have got. mean, somebody like Alex Lowry needs to be better than what we are signing to get into the first team. Obviously, Leon King needs to be playing at a higher level than Connor Goldson and Ben Davies. Adam Devine needs to be playing at a higher level than Borna Barisic or James Tavernier. I mean, that's where these young players are. They need to go out and show that they're better than what's currently in the first 11, and that's a really difficult thing to do, and that will continue to be the case. Is there a lot of exceptionally talented young players at Rangers Academy? Yeah. Are they always going to make it at Rangers? No. But it doesn't mean the boys can't go on and have a good career, and that's always been my mindset since I first watched the players play, that as long as they go on to have a career in the game, I'm happy for them. I know they would all love to make it at Rangers, but I'm also accepting of the fact that every young player that's at the academy isn't going to make it at Rangers. There's like a 0.1% chance that somebody will ever be good enough to play for the club, and the rest of the guys will move on to play in League One, League Two, the Championship, might go to England, might go abroad. But that's where we are.
Yeah, that is. And look, Curry's saying, if there's any youngsters watching, I apologise for the language. That it's grim, but true, and it is a pity that we've had a few really good up-and-coming youngsters that will probably fall away to the sidelines because they are not given the chance. And the only way for Rangers to turn around and prove us wrong is for one or two players to come through and be given the chance. And look, we've got Lowry, we've got Zach, we've got Aaron, we've got Bailey Rice. There's plenty of young players there who I'm hoping have a chance to possibly break through and maybe do something with our team. But until that day happens, then we will be having the same conversations about the academy. Although, like William says, it produces a number of fantastic young players who go on and do things in Scottish football. I say it's had zero impact. That's not fair. That's not true. That was a wee bit of an overreaction, but it's just not had the impact that we would want in terms of first team players.
No.
But we shall leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I really enjoy doing these academy reviews with William. I enjoy going to the games. I enjoy watching the B team. It's an experience. That is, I would advise anybody just to go along, even if you only want to do it once, you've never done it before, going along and watch it and enjoy it. Dumbarton's a nice wee stadium next to a nice big castle. You can have a wee look at the castle at the same time as well. But yeah, so thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully we'll be back sooner than we were aware of last time. And I'm hoping to do a few more things with the academy going towards the end of the season, and especially when we go full time. I'm looking to kind of up the quality level of the academy stuff that we bring you. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Please like, please subscribe. Remember that link for kit bags in the description for up to 65% off of all, not all, most of the selected football tops, and that includes all the Rangers tops from this season as well. So thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we'll speak to you all again very, very soon.